Most people think evil announces itself. They imagine it arrives wearing a mask they can easily recognize. They picture obvious villains, obvious lies, obvious danger. But reality rarely works that way. The most dangerous people are often the ones who appear harmless. They smile, they shake hands, they tell jokes, they blend into the background so effectively that nobody notices the warning signs until the damage has already been done. The uncomfortable truth is that human beings are experts at disguising their intentions. We evolved in social groups where survival often depended on hiding our true motives. Because of this, the greatest threats rarely reveal themselves through dramatic acts. Instead, they reveal themselves through patterns, tiny patterns, repeated patterns, behaviors that seem insignificant on their own but become impossible to ignore once you know what you're looking at. Today, we're going to examine 5 chilling behaviors that can expose something dark beneath the surface. These are not signs that automatically prove someone is evil. Human behavior is complicated. Context matters. But when these patterns become consistent, when they appear again and again, they can reveal a disturbing truth about a person's character. The first behavior is the enjoyment of unnecessary suffering. Pay attention to the moments when someone has power over another person, not when they're being watched, not when there's a reward for kindness. Watch what happens when there is absolutely no benefit to being cruel. Some individuals seem to derive satisfaction from creating discomfort. They enjoy embarrassing people. They enjoy humiliating people. They enjoy making others feel small. And the most disturbing part is that they often disguise it as humor. They'll say, "I was only joking." They'll say, "You're too sensitive." They'll say, "Can't you take a joke?" But look closely. The target is always someone weaker, someone unable to fight back, someone unlikely to challenge them. This behavior reveals something important. Most healthy people feel discomfort when they cause unnecessary pain. Their conscience acts like a brake. But some people experience the opposite. They feel a sense of reward, a sense of control, a sense of superiority. And when someone repeatedly seeks those moments, you may be looking at something much darker than simple rudeness. The second behavior is the complete absence of genuine accountability. Everyone makes mistakes. Every human being lies at some point. Every human being fails. That isn't the issue. The issue is what happens afterward. Watch how a person responds when confronted with clear evidence of wrongdoing. A healthy person may deny it initially. They may become defensive, but eventually they recognize reality. They acknowledge responsibility. A dangerous person follows a different path. First, they deny, then they blame, then they attack, then they become the victim. The facts never matter because preserving their image matters more than truth itself. You could present undeniable proof, and somehow the conversation still ends with them explaining why someone else is responsible. Over time, this creates a terrifying pattern. If someone can never admit fault, there is no internal mechanism stopping future harm. Accountability is one of the foundations of moral behavior. Remove accountability, and almost anything becomes justifiable. The third behavior is the strategic use of charm. Most people assume charm is a positive trait. Not necessarily. Charm is a tool, and like any tool, it depends on the hands that wield it. Pay attention to individuals who seem capable of instantly becoming whoever the situation requires. One moment they're compassionate, the next moment they're aggressive. Then they're vulnerable. Then they're confident. At first, this adaptability appears impressive. But eventually, a question emerges. Which version is real? Manipulative people often treat personality like a costume closet. They don't use charm to connect. They use charm to control. Their warmth has a purpose. Their compliments have a purpose. Their kindness has a purpose. Everything is transactional. The frightening part is that victims often mistake manipulation for genuine affection. They feel understood. They feel seen. They feel special. Until the day they stop being useful. Then the mask slips. Then the warmth disappears. Then they discover the relationship was never built on connection. It was built on exploitation. The fourth behavior is the destruction of trust through constant distortion of reality. Reality is the foundation of human cooperation. Without shared reality, relationships collapse. Watch carefully for people who continuously rewrite events, not occasionally. Continuously, they say things they never said. They deny things everyone witnessed. They alter details. They change stories. And, when challenged, they act confused that anyone would question them. The goal is not merely to avoid responsibility. The goal is to destabilize certainty itself. Over time, those around them begin to doubt their own memory, their own judgment, their own perception. This is one of the most psychologically damaging behaviors a human being can engage in, because once a person loses confidence in their ability to perceive reality, they become easier to control. Healthy relationships create clarity. Toxic relationships create confusion. And confusion is often the smoke that reveals a hidden fire. The fifth behavior is the absence of empathy when there is nothing to gain. This may be the most chilling behavior of all. Empathy is what allows us to recognize the humanity of others. It creates limits. It creates restraint. It creates compassion. But some individuals display empathy only when it benefits them. They can imitate concern. They can imitate sadness. They can imitate compassion. Yet when no audience exists, when no reward exists, their concern vanishes. Watch how people respond to vulnerability. Watch how they respond to weakness. Watch how they respond when another person's suffering offers no social advantage. The answer often reveals more than words ever could, because genuine empathy is not a performance. It exists even when nobody is watching. It exists even when there is no applause. It exists even when kindness goes unnoticed. When empathy is absent, people become objects, obstacles, tools, resources, stepping stones. And history has shown repeatedly that terrible acts become possible the moment human beings stop seeing other human beings as fully human. Now, here's the most important lesson. The goal is not paranoia. The goal is awareness. You don't need to become suspicious of everyone. You don't need to assume the worst in people. In fact, doing so would create its own kind of blindness. Instead, learn to observe patterns. Anyone can have a bad day. Anyone can act selfishly. Anyone can make mistakes. But character is revealed through repetition. Bartels tell the truth that words often hide. When someone's actions consistently create suffering, avoid responsibility, manipulate through charm, distort reality, and display a lack of genuine empathy, you are no longer looking at isolated incidents. You are looking at a system, a pattern, a glimpse beneath the mask. The greatest advantage you can possess is not strength. It is not intelligence. It is not influence. It is awareness. Because once you see these patterns clearly, they lose much of their power. Manipulation depends on blindness. Deception depends on confusion. Control depends on ignorance. The moment you learn to recognize these behaviors, you become harder to deceive, harder to manipulate, and harder to control. And that may be the most powerful defense of all. The reason these behaviors are so dangerous is not because they are dramatic. It is because they are subtle. Human beings are naturally drawn toward obvious threats. If someone storms into a room screaming, everyone immediately recognizes the danger. If someone openly declares harmful intentions, people become cautious. But hidden darkness rarely operates that way. It survives by remaining invisible. Think about the people who have caused the greatest damage in workplaces, families, friendships, and communities. In many cases, those individuals were not identified immediately. In fact, they were often trusted, respected, sometimes even admired. Why? Because they understood something most people never fully appreciate. Perception is often stronger than reality. If a person can control how others perceive them, they can hide behaviors that would otherwise expose them. This is why observation matters so much. Not observation of words, observation of patterns. Words are cheap. Promises are cheap. Declaration of character are cheap. Actions require payment. Zoxes reveal priorities. Zoxes reveal motives. Zoxes reveal truth. One of the greatest mistakes people make is assuming that character can be measured by what someone says about themselves. Ask a dishonest person whether they are honest. They will say yes. Ask a selfish person whether they care about others. They will say yes. Ask a manipulator whether they manipulate. They will deny it. Human beings are remarkably unreliable narrators of their own behavior. That is why the most accurate information often comes from watching what people repeatedly do, rather than listening to what they repeatedly say. Let's explore another disturbing pattern that often hides beneath the surface. Watch for people who create division wherever they go. At first, this behavior can be difficult to recognize because it often appears disguised as concern. They bring information from one person to another. They reveal secrets. They spread rumors. They present themselves as helpful messengers. But over time, something strange begins to happen. Conflict follows them. Friendships collapse around them. Teams become fragmented around them. Families become divided around them. Trust begins to disappear wherever they spend enough time. When you examine the situation closely, you often discover the same individual standing quietly in the center of the chaos. This is not an accident. For certain personalities, division creates opportunity. When people distrust each other, they become easier to influence. When people stop communicating directly, misinformation becomes easier to spread. When relationships weaken, control becomes easier to establish. The individual who creates division often positions themselves as the solution to the very problems they helped create. This is a powerful manipulation strategy because it allows them to appear valuable while secretly damaging the environment around them. Healthy people build bridges. Dangerous people often build walls. Another chilling behavior involves selective morality. Most people have principles, at least they claim to, but true principles are tested during inconvenient moments. It is easy to advocate fairness when fairness benefits you. It is easy to advocate honesty when honesty protects you. It is easy to advocate kindness when kindness costs nothing. The real test comes when those principles become expensive. Watch what happens when someone has an opportunity to gain power, status, money, or influence through questionable means. Do their values remain consistent, or do those values suddenly become flexible? Many dangerous individuals possess what appears to be a strong moral framework until that framework becomes inconvenient. Then exceptions appear, justifications appear, rationalizations appear. Suddenly, the rules that apply to everyone else no longer apply to them. This reveals a critical distinction. Authentic morality is consistent. Performative morality is conditional. One exists because of internal conviction. The other exists because of external appearance. And when pressure arrives, the difference becomes impossible to hide. There is another behavior that deserves attention because it often predicts future harm. Pay close attention to how someone discusses people who can no longer defend themselves. Former friends, former partners, former employees, former colleagues, people who are no longer present. Listen carefully. Do they take any responsibility for past conflicts? Do they acknowledge mistakes? Do they demonstrate reflection? Or is every story structured the same way? Every former friend was jealous. Every former partner was crazy. Every former coworker was incompetent. Every disagreement was someone else's fault. Every failure was caused by someone else. This pattern should immediately trigger caution, because if every person from someone's past is portrayed as the villain, there is a strong possibility that the storyteller is withholding crucial information. Healthy people understand that relationships are complex. Conflicts are complex. Life is complex. Dangerous individuals often simplify every story into a narrative where they remain permanently innocent. The purpose of this narrative is protection. If they can convince others that everyone from their past was the problem, they never have to examine themselves. Self-examination requires humility. Humility requires accountability. And accountability threatens the carefully constructed image they have built. Perhaps one of the most revealing moments occurs when power enters the equation. Power is a magnifier. It doesn't create character. It reveals character. A person who is compassionate before acquiring power often becomes more compassionate afterward. A person who is generous before acquiring power often becomes more generous afterward. A person who is cruel before acquiring power often becomes more cruel afterward. The difference is that power removes obstacles. It removes consequences. It removes limitations. And once those limitations disappear, hidden tendencies become visible. This is why observing someone during moments of authority can provide extraordinary insight into their true nature. Watch how they treat people who cannot offer them anything. Watch how they treat service workers. Watch how they treat subordinates. Watch how they treat individuals who possess less influence than they do. These moments reveal priorities that public performances often conceal, because character is not measured by how someone treats important people. Character is measured by how someone treats people they believe are unimportant. Now consider a frightening possibility. Imagine meeting someone who appears kind, intelligent, charming, confident, and successful. Most people would assume those traits indicate good character, but none of those qualities guarantee morality. A person can be intelligent and harmful. A person can be charming and harmful. A person can be successful and harmful. A person can be respected and harmful. History repeatedly demonstrates this lesson. Many destructive individuals were admired long before they were exposed. This is why surface impressions can be dangerous. The goal is not to judge people harshly. The goal is to look deeper, beneath reputation, beneath appearance, beneath performance, because eventually every mask becomes heavy. Eventually every false image requires maintenance. Eventually contradictions begin to appear. And those contradictions often reveal more than the image itself. As you move through life, remember this principle. The truth about a person's character is usually hidden in the moments they believe nobody is studying them. The casual comment, the unnecessary insult, the quiet deception, the small act of cruelty, the manipulation disguised as concern, the pattern of excuses, the refusal to accept responsibility. These moments may seem insignificant, but they are clues, and clues become patterns. Patterns become predictions. Predictions become protection. The people who avoid manipulation are not necessarily smarter than everyone else. They are often simply better observers. They notice what others ignore. They pay attention when stories do not match behavior. They recognize inconsistencies. They understand that character leaves fingerprints everywhere. And once you learn how to see those fingerprints, it becomes much harder for hidden darkness to remain hidden. There is a moment that often occurs before a person's true nature is revealed. It is a moment so subtle that most people miss it entirely. Nothing dramatic happens. No major conflict erupts. No shocking event takes place. Instead, there is a tiny fracture between what someone claims to be and what they actually do. Most people ignore these fractures. They explain them away. They rationalize them. They give the benefit of the doubt. And sometimes that generosity is appropriate. Human beings are imperfect. Everyone has contradictions. Everyone falls short of their ideals. But hidden darkness thrives inside repeated contradictions.